Hello, I'm Kit, your friendly feminist cat lady spinster, and welcome to the 9th day of Tradmas. The 12 Days of Tradmas is a series looking at people in the trad or traditional movement, and for the 9th day, we're going to be looking at Bernadine Bluntly. Per her website, she's a Christian, wife, mother, and homemaker who creates online content that promotes traditional values, faith, family, and freedom. Bernadine was born around 1990 and mostly grew up in San Diego, California. However, within the last year, Bernadine and her husband bought land and a cabin to start their off-grid homesteading journey. She has two older sisters, and her mother passed away when she was 4. She has an associate's degree in early childhood education with an emphasis on art. She met her husband when they were 17 and they married at 21. Currently, they have 4 children. Per Bernadine, she grew up going to church, but it wasn't until she was 16 that she became a born-again Christian, and even then, as a conservative Christian, she struggled with feminist thinking. However, she was set free a few years ago and has been passionate about sharing the truth ever since. In her own words, God showed me how feminism had deeply influenced my heart and mind even as a born-again Christian and conservative. Through studying, praying, and even learning things the hard way, God has taken me through a humbling, challenging, and utterly beautiful journey of healing, love, freedom, and peace. Going a little deeper, Bernadine says her marriage was rocky, they had a lot of arguments, and she planned to leave. She didn't know what her purpose was because she had lost her mother at a young age, and her husband had lost his father, so no one had taught them gender roles, and she was engaged in worldly feminist thinking that made her believe she must change the world. But God began to show her that her purpose was to be a disciple of Christ, a helpmate to her husband, a mother to her children, and a disciple maker for other women. Bernadine is a believer in the umbrella of protection, wife over children, husband over wife, and Jesus over husband. And judging from her comment on this post, she thinks if men hadn't abused their power, feminism wouldn't have existed. And also, if you're a progressive Christian, you clearly haven't read the Bible and you're wrong. Bernadine is not only not a feminist, she is anti-feminist. I'm often left wondering how anti-feminists define feminism, but Bernadine wrote an article, How Modern Feminism Fails to be Pro-Woman, that spells it out for us. Modern feminism also fails to be pro-women in that virtues such as piety, purity, domesticity, and submissiveness are scorned, snubbed, and degraded. It's plain to see that in the eyes of modern feminism, religious devotion, sexual purity, excellence as a homemaker, and deferring to the men in one's life are revolting and repulsive virtues to have. Lastly, modern feminism fails to be pro-women because it believes that gender roles and gender itself are to be erased, not embraced, eradicated, not defined. Feminism today requires a PhD in mental gymnastics. It's no longer about women's rights, it is all kinds of rights for anyone and anything, whoever and whatever they self-identify as any time of the day, any day of the week. There is no defining goal and no defining audience. It's a free-for-all for the cause of anything and everything. And why is this? It is because smashing the patriarchy also meant rejecting headship, leadership, and hierarchy in general. There is no order, no definition, no structure. So first, you'll notice a lack of critique on my channel for men and women simply living their lives however they find happiness. However, I do have an issue with telling women they must be pious, pure, domestic, and submissive. I also have an issue telling women they have to defer to men. And if Bernadine promotes freedom, why is she so invested in order and structure? What is wrong with giving rights to people no matter how they identify? When she says she promotes freedom, what is she talking about? If feminism were indeed pro-women, their undeniable rejection and hostility towards non-feminist women would cease to exist. But alas, this won't be the case. Why? Because truth is not relative. We don't get to define or distort it. Men are not our problem. All of humanity is subject to failures. The future cannot be female, it must be, as it has always been, male and female. Feminism is a tunnel vision train wreck. I'm all for human rights, which include the fundamental rights of women, but feminism today is not the route to accomplish those goals. So on one hand, feminism is about rights for everyone, anytime, and on the other, it's about exalting women? Anyway, there's a difference between not being a feminist and being anti-feminist. And Bernadine, given that you're racist, sexist, homophobic, and transphobic, you not being a feminist is likely the last on the list of reasons people feel hostile towards you. And given that you're anti-choice and believe women should be submissive, I'm curious about what fundamental rights you believe women should have. Ultimately, progressive feminism fails to be pro-women because it rejects the nature of true womanhood. At its core, it could be described as a form of self-hatred, disdain for feminine beauty, rejection of our biologically and emotionally unique gifts, and resistance to the natural role we are designed and wired to play most effectively in our homes and communities. Feminism is against women being reduced to stereotypes, being judged based on their purity, and being mocked for failing to fit into stereotypes of what a woman should be. And again, where is the freedom in rigid gender roles? Is this like Girl Define's humans were never meant to be burdened with finding themselves, find yourself in the Bible? So, regarding her feelings toward feminism, Bernadine had 2 series on her Instagram, both of which seem to have been deleted. The first was RIP Feminism, where women discussed their glow up after they saw the light and left feminism for freedom and femininity. It had a really interesting and, to be honest, concerning trend. The main themes seem to be depression and drug use, as well as modern things like being vegetarian, vegan, and New Age. And then they became Christian and got married, and that made them happy and feminine. The second series was Shocking Quotes from Leading Feminists, which was about taking quotes from 1960s and 70s feminists out of context. And finally, Bernadine created a digital guide to help women break free from feminism. I did a reading of it some months ago, which I'll link above, and I apologize in advance, it was recorded before I had a microphone. Now let's have a look at some of Bernadine's anti-feminism posts. Feminists who fight the patriarchy usually end up looking like imitation males. Why is that? Because in order to end toxic masculinity, they also remove their own feminine qualities. Anything that gives them a womanly appearance. They hate men but end up looking like bootleg versions of them. They erase their own femininity because they perceive it as a weakness when in fact, femininity is their strength. So does Bernadine really think feminists never wear makeup or dresses? Has she ever actually met a feminist? She knows it's not a religion, right? There is no uniform or anything. The goal of feminists is to impose a mindless equality regardless of how many people it hurts. Phyllis Schlafly. It doesn't surprise me that Bernadine is a Phyllis fan, but I'm still puzzled over why they take so much offense over people simply living their lives the way they like, instead of conforming to society's expectations. That being said, in addition to being anti-feminist, Bernadine is also pro-patriarchy. Patriarchy is the future. Bernadine says it was only temporarily put on hold. Now, this might sound scary, but don't worry. Bernadine has to create a chart so we can easily differentiate patriarchy from tyranny and know when we're safe. So patriarchy is love-based, sacrificial, run by strong men, protects the vulnerable, provides and tends to, creates strong, cohesive, thriving, and orderly societies. The leaders are loved, admired, and respected. But tyranny is fear-based, greedy, run by weak men, oppresses the vulnerable, steals and withholds, creates miserable, weak, dysfunctional societies, and the leaders are resented, despised, and distrusted. It really makes sense because biblical patriarchy will free us from tyranny. By the way, Bernadine, telling one person they get to be the essentially unquestioned leader by virtue of their sex creates tyrants. But hey, just because men rule the world doesn't mean women don't have a role to play. Men are creators of societies, women are creators of life. One is not more important than the other. Both are crucial. If men and women were equal in every way, there would be no reason to create two distinct genders. Who created gender? Men and women are of equal value to God, but He designed them to have different strengths, purposes, and roles. So never forget, women are just as important to God. It's just that we're inferior, so we have to be under a man. But we're still totally equal to men in God's eyes. We just need protection. And of course, is someone really trad if they don't have any conspiracy theories? The elite's game plan is to destroy the family unit, use adultery, divorce, abortion, homosexuality, a collapsing economy, erase gender roles, then erase gender, remove parental authority and hand all power to the government, poison the population with healthcare and pharmacy, make churches weak, fearful, irrelevant, and useless, remove authentic leadership skills from men, remove mothers from their homes and children, kill the maternal instinct entirely, remove courage and integrity from men, make them passive, insecure slaves to covenantless sex, salivating like dogs at the feet of promiscuous women. Remove dignity and femininity from women, make them strong, independent slaves to degradation and billionaire corporations. Many college students are graduating from their Marxist schools and becoming teachers to further spread their indoctrination. And as you can see here, Bernadine has quite a thing about cultural Marxism. And for anyone wondering what cultural Marxism is a far-right, anti-Semitic conspiracy theory which claims Western Marxism as the basis of continuing academic and intellectual efforts to subvert Western culture. The theory claims that an elite of Marxist theorists and Frankfurt School intellectuals are subverting Western society with a culture war that undermines the Christian values of traditionalist conservatism and promotes the cultural liberal values of the 1960s counterculture and multiculturalism, progressive politics and political correctness, misrepresented as identity politics created by critical theory. I wonder if Bernadine believes in QAnon. And of course, Bernadine is homophobic and transphobic. It's usually a vicious cycle. Absent lazy dad and a controlling, insufferable mom. They feed off each other. The only hope is Christ, surrendering both our sins and our fears to Him. Gays choosing gayhood due to poor relationships with their fathers shows that it was due to dysfunction, lack and brokenness in their homes, not a choice you make out of love or orientation. Not everyone who has a poor relationship with their dad will choose homosexuality, but just about all homosexuals have a poor relationship with their dad. Big difference. But if we don't vote, then the left wins. At least one's not as bad as the other, man. When will white Americans stop participating in rigged elections and settling for the candidate they hate the least? Why can't we have a party we actually like? You talk about voter fraud, but don't see how the entire game is fraudulent. You're forced to choose between left and far left, and you're still crying about Dominion software? Grow up. Demand a party that actually represents our views and reject rejectionist voting. It's a matter of the LGBT assimilating to actual conservative values instead of infiltrating and subverting conservatives. Huge difference. Conservatives today are weak and they're the ones assimilating to the LGBT agenda. Drag is sexist gender appropriation. There are no trans or non-binary kids, only people who shouldn't be parents. Recently, Bernadine collaborated with the Worth Fighting For account, and the post says that if you didn't come from a healthy family, make sure a healthy family comes from you. Okay, sound advice. However, well, for one, the Worth Fighting For account is sketchy, and the image itself shows a white couple in 2009, clearly having just gotten married, and then it shows that couple in 2019 with 5 kids and the caption, "How to Start Your Own Nation from Scratch." Which is slightly sinister and also extremely weird because it's obviously not Bernadine and her husband, so for this collaboration, why not use their own pictures? They married in 2011 and have 4 kids. It would be exactly the same message, but Bernadine's family is not blonde, and Bernadine herself is not 100% European. That being said, here are some more posts from her. I'm not comfortable reading them aloud. I think they can be summed up as, Bernadine is a proud nationalist, and she doesn't think minorities should be overrepresented in ads, nor does she think anyone in the LGBTQ+ community should be represented anywhere. So no, Bernadine, I'm not going to miss you with that racist stuff. I'm going to call you racist. As mentioned earlier in the video, Bernadine engaged in worldly feminist thinking that made her believe she must change the world. Is she quite sure she's no longer in that feminist mindset? Though her views may be different, she's still pushing them on social media in an effort to drive change. She's also created an online dating course and an online store, which sells items with catchy slogans on it like faith over fear, feminine and free, and feminine no longer feminist. She also created TradX Connect, where members of the trad community can connect with like-minded people. So again, is she quite certain that believing she must change the world was the feminist mindset and not simply who she is? I guess they're kind of a package deal, so Bernadine's husband, Lawson, has his own Instagram. Actually, he has 3 accounts. He also began a podcast called Reformation Now, though it only has 2 episodes and hasn't been updated since 2020. Let's take a look at some of his posts. On June 1st, Lawson wished everyone Happy Christianity Month. Yeah. And here we have them. Make sure you're both in total agreement before you do anything. Husbands and wives have equal authority. Don't make any decisions without her, even if it's best for your family. Me having read the Bible, and there's an image of Trump. And Lawson says, someone watching this needs to take charge in their family. Do it today. Life tip. Women want to submit. If she tells you she doesn't want to submit, she's lying. It's code for, I want you to lead better. If you love your wife, you will lead your wife. Betas will say it's wrong. Loving your wife equals dominating life. Ladies tip. Tell your husband how hot it would be if he led by whatever. Attacking him is not going to motivate him. Your submission will pull greatness out of him. Go forth and conquer together. He also wrote a series on Bernadine's website called How to Get a Trad Wife. I think there's like 5 parts to this. And here we have his duty, which is a knight on a literal knight on a white horse. Wow. So his duty is to protect and provide. Hers is to birth and nurture. Lawson says, all the work is yours. A king is responsible for everything in his kingdom. He may not be the one building the walls, chopping the trees, scouting the land, blah, 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 but the responsibility of it all falls on him. So it is with your family. The home, the finances, the children, the schooling, the discipline, the chores, the meals, the safety, the life goals, the budget, the cooking, cleaning, the spirituality, the doctrine, the 5-year plan, the 50-year plan, and the children's books at bedtime. It all falls on you. Her role may be keeping the house, raising the children, cooking, cleaning, homeschooling, decorating, and making your house into a home of warmth and joy, but it is your responsibility to guide that and everything else into reality. If something needs improvement, it is your job to lead the way forward. You are the one that establishes the culture and direction in your family, and this includes the establishment of roles and responsibilities. If something needs done, you may not be the one doing it, but you are the one responsible for making it happen. That is a lot of work to put onto one person. And also, if the children in the home are the woman's role and he's still overseeing them, how is that her sphere? I mean, she still has to have his approval to do as she thinks best, even though allegedly it's in women's nurturing nature to, look after the home and children. Bernadine is an interesting one to me because though she does the usual religious talk, I would say she's trad first and religious second, and I would say she's trad because of the racism in the trad movement. I would like to believe the posts about race were deleted from her Instagram, but but I believe they're simply residing on her private Instagram account, likely because people reported those on her public account. It's also interesting to me how extreme Bernadine is. Not only was she a feminist, but she believes she had to change the world, but it didn't stop her from marrying at 21. And now she's not a feminist, she's anti-feminist, she's not a homemaker, she's a trad wife. She has a 50,000 follower Instagram page, an online course, a store, a community. It looks to me like Bernadine is searching for ways to make a difference. In trad circles, a woman's meaning, reason for living, ways to make a difference is supposed to come from marriage and kids. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. But despite having done all that, Bernadine still seems to be seeking ways outside of her circumscribed role to create change. And that is it for day 9 of Tradmas. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as possible considering the content, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.